So movies are bombing right now. Seems like every other week that there's a major release that underperforms at the box office, and recently Disney have had a string of flops that have left the company potentially losing close to $1 billion when we close out this year. Elemental's done terribly, and now Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny's opened to just $60 million off the back of what's at least a $300 million budget. But what exactly is going on right now?
It's called capitalism.
Well, throughout this video, we're going to be going through the key factors and reasons as to why there's a lot of things at play here that are stopping films from doing very well. Obviously, there's a lot to talk about too, so if you have your own opinion on it, then drop it in the comment section below. And also, make sure you hit thumbs up or down if you agree or disagree with our thoughts. With out of the way, I'm your host Paul, welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. Now let's get into the video. So up top, I think it's important to say that you shouldn't judge a movie by its box office. There's a countless list of films that have done terribly when it comes to taking, but they've been amazing movies overall. Juxtaposing this, there's been some right turd sandwiches that have made Michael Bay a lot of money, and all in all, money doesn't make a movie. However, Hollywood is a business as well, and with investors, shareholders, and an industry relying on profit, you have to make money. Let's say you're a big billionaire, yeah, and a studio come to you looking for an investment. If you gave them even $10 million, yes, just $10 million to go off and make an Indiana Jones movie, you wouldn't want just $50 million back. Investors are wanting major returns on their investments, and I think this in The Flash could have potentially killed off the possibility of studios going crazy with their money. Now, first up, I think we need to talk about the facts of the situation and what Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny brought in on its opening weekend. Domestically in the US, the movie opened up to $60 million, with it taking in $70 million in overseas markets. Coming in at $130 million worldwide, that's less than half of the Crystal Skull's opening back in 2008. That opened at $272 million, and adjusted for inflation, that's about $384 million in today's money. Now, we are noticing this trend with Hollywood where so many movies are struggling at the box office, and the first point I want to talk about is a fool me once mentality. This is kind of the feeling the audience have in general right now, and we've hit a point where there's been so many of these sorts of legacy sequels where people have left disappointed that they almost don't want to take the risk anymore. Now, Lucasfilm especially has managed to cause a lot of backlash with Star Wars, and this is due to the fact of how they handled the sequel trilogy. I actually thought the Dial of Destiny was okay, but I definitely don't think that it felt like it was necessary. Hollywood's greed has led to them being creatively bankrupt, and every week's either a sequel, prequel, or something that we've seen before. We're at a point now where they've made the quote-unquote final Indiana Jones film 3 times now, and people might just be worn out by the whole idea. Add to the fact Jones isn't exactly a hero that stayed in the zeitgeist, and you can see why audience interest wasn't that high. Now, what I mean by that is that Star Wars was released roughly the same time as the original Indiana Jones trilogy was. These were big successes in the 80s, and both did big numbers when it came to George Lucas. However, Star Wars has managed to maintain an active fan base, and this has come with toys, cons, comics, books, video games, expanded lore, TV show, and also films. Indiana Jones hasn't, and though it's had its odd piece of media drop here and there, it's not been this consistent wave of content to keep people hooked. I think it's difficult to expect the younger generation to go out and see an 80-year-old hero when even 15-year-olds today probably weren't alive when his last movie came out. And normally what studios do now when they've got this older hero is that they hire younger actors with big followings, but Phoebe Waller-Bridge hasn't really got a fan base that's going to deliver big bucks. Now, there's also the fact that the last film was widely disliked by most of the fan base. I know there will be some people out there who like it, yeah, but overall, I think we can all admit that general sentiment towards it was that it was the worst out of the franchise. When a movie does well, then its sequel normally follows suit, and it has to be said that the MCU has used this to great effect. Avengers Infinity War was of course a massive movie, and then Endgame dropped to an opening of over $1 billion. Batman Begins wasn't a crazy hit, but people enjoyed it on DVD so much that by the time the sequel came round, we all were on board. Into the Spider-Verse did okay, but Across the Spider-Verse is where the numbers have really come in, and you can find these examples in Hollywood everywhere you look. Now, the reason that I'm bringing this up is that the opposite is often true of movies that don't do well. If a film lets people down, then its sequel tends to underperform, no matter how good that people think it is. Now, kind of jumping back to DVDs, I think that Hollywood have stupidly eliminated what used to be one of their big earners. Back in the day, a lot of movies could tank at the box office, but then the physical media market is where studios would recoup. If a film bombed, but it was popular on VHS or DVD, then in the end, it didn't really matter. I'm a big collector of 4K Blu-rays, but the market's almost non-existent now, and streaming and digital have completely killed it off. Recently, we've seen in some cases where a movie does bad at the box office and then it gets released on streaming just 3 weeks later. Sometimes though, even if it does okay, they still go that route, and to me all it's gonna do is change people's behaviours. For example, both Creed and Evil Dead released just weeks after showing in cinemas, and they were announced as going digital just the weekend after. I was gearing up and getting ready to go see them second weekend because I missed that first one due to being busy. However, when I saw that I could just wait another week and see it at home, sure enough, I just watched the films then. Nowadays, we know that movies come to digital really quickly, and streaming services tend to have a 45-day window. The films that don't do this, i.e. Avatar and Top Gun, they had success for months just being in the theaters. Now I know that not every movie is going to be that big, and studios just want to recoup as much money as they can after that opening weekend drop-off. However, I think overall this has altered people's habits. And once again, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, I'll just wait for it to drop digitally in 3 weeks, cheers mate. Now Pixar especially have suffered because of this, and they're now seen as a streaming studio which has killed their movies. Now there's also just a general dislike towards Disney as a brand these days. You only have to throw a like on this video and then go to your home tab to see what I'm guessing is going to be filled with anti-Disney videos and also anti-Kathleen Kennedy ones. Now even if this was just 10% of the audience, that's still enough to harm the box office by tens of millions. There's also a massive culture war going on right now that Disney have placed themselves in, and whether you think that's a good or a bad thing, it's always going to come with a cost. Now I was weighing up whether to bring this up in the video or not, as it can be a touchy subject, but I think if we're analysing this to the best of our abilities, then it has to be seen as a factor. Even if it's a minuscule one, it's still a factor, and it might knock tens of millions off the box office if it comes into play. Now studios like Paramount and Universal have kept themselves out of this culture war, and so far they've done well by not getting involved. Again, how you come down on that's entirely up to you, but let's admit it's gonna come with a cost that costs these films money. Now Kathleen Kennedy is arguably the most disliked exec in any fan base right now. Don't quote me on this, but I'm sure the dislike button on YouTube itself got removed after she did some speech that got millions of downvotes on it. There just seems to be an aura of discontent around her, which came off the back of how she handled the sequel trilogy. This got met with a lot of backlash, and there's so many projects that Lucasfilm have now shelved because of poor mismanagement. There's been countless Star Wars movies announced with up-and-coming directors that have then been shelved once a director's popularity wanes off. Often put down to creative differences, it seems like complete mismanagement on the studio's behalf. Josh Trank, D&D, Ryan Johnson, Patty Jenkins and so on, they've all had Star Wars films announced that have either been cancelled or quietly shuffled off the slate. Same thing will probably happen with James Mangold too, where they announce a movie with them once the director's seen as the next best thing, and then when the next project releases, it causes issues with the studios. I'm telling you, yeah, that Taika Waititi Star Wars movie, never getting made. Anyway, Kathleen's seen as being bad for the brand, and there definitely feels like a section of the fan base that'll just boycott anything that's involved with her. There has been a lot of talk about how she could get fired off the back of this, but I've heard that rumor thousands of times before, and I guess we'll see. Her contract actually runs out in 2024, so they might just let her have some dignity and ride that out, but I think if she stays at the studio, then they're gonna run into more problems. Unfortunately, what tends to happen in these situations is that it's the little guys that suffer, and we normally get layoffs lower down the chain rather than at the top. When I've worked in shops and stuff, not saying it's the same thing, but when I've worked in shops and stuff, yeah, if we hit a point where there was no profit, it's always been Janine on the till who gets a minimum wage that gets fired, instead of the bosses who ran the business into the ground. I think that will be the case here too, and it will probably be those lower down the line that get hit. Now you have exceeded your video rate limit and must now join the channel as a member to see any more of the video. I'm just kidding, it was a bit of social commentary there. I love you. Now, on top of Kathleen Kennedy, we also have another member of the creative team that could have caused issues. You might remember that elements of the film apparently leaked last year, and then James Mangold got into it with people online. Look mate, I totally get it, like I get people talking crap about me, yeah, if you can't believe it, but I don't think it ever gives you any positive publicity to go and engage with it. All it does is cause a negative aura around your film, and you have headlines that thrive off drama rather than the film itself. I've argued with people online, and then the next day I've woken up and regretted it because in the end it doesn't do anything to benefit you. Now I doubt that this had a major effect on the box office, but even a little one is enough to cost a couple million. Basically, yeah, the point I'm trying to get across in this video is that there's lots of different reasons why the film didn't do well, and all these coming together make for an underperformer. Now let's say you don't exactly have a lot of positivity around your studio, and you want to build some hype, right? Well, you screen it for people to get some good word of mouth. Both Indy and The Flash did this, but in the case of both, we saw how it backfired. Flash was shown at CinemaCon earlier in the year, and Indiana Jones dropped at Cannes Film Festival. The former got good word of mouth, whereas the latter didn't, and Indy really struggled to bat off those negative first reviews. Now I don't want to say them people at Cannes are snobs here, but I don't know if a film like this would have ever done well there. Them guys that like to watch black and white silent movies made in 1912, so the new old man CGI face movie, it was always gonna struggle. Either way though, I think showing it this early didn't help either, as they both had to try and maintain the hype for weeks and weeks and weeks. When the buzz online dies down, because so many have already seen it, it's difficult for general audiences to feel like they should care. There's very much this idea of, well, everyone's seen it, I'm not, it comes out on digital soon, I can probably wait another week. Again, this ties back into our earlier point, and you have the idea that the theatrical experience isn't that necessary. And those negative reviews clouded the film for weeks, and again it was another bad move by Kathleen Kennedy. Plus yeah, the movie, it's not really a feel-good story. I think a lot of people wanted Indy to go out in a blaze of glory, and instead what we get is a film about a sad old man that takes away from him more than it gives. The final act, you know, I was thinking like, they're gonna have the final Indiana Jones adventure. It'll be a big swing, he'll save the day, it'll be a bombastic end to this cinematic legend. Instead though, what we get is him getting knocked out, and then waking up 3 days later with no idea what happened. You sat there asking like, how did they all fit in that little plane, and questioning the time travel instead of seeing what should be Indy at his best. So the word of mouth around this wasn't there to sell it to others, because there wasn't the idea that this was the last hurrah. Even now, I don't feel like that ending feels like the final Indiana Jones film, and from the guy who made Logan, I was expecting more. Now I think we definitely have to talk about the state of the world in general, and how it's left a lot of movies with very little chance. So one of the main reasons that the budget's so high on this is due to the fact that it was filmed during the pandemic. Production was constantly stopping and starting, and with it being a worldwide film, you had different rules in different countries. Some things were delayed, testing added a lot, and you had several different factors here racking up the money. The budget spiraled out of control, and you've now hit a point where they have to make $1 billion just to break even. We've also gone from the pandemic into a cost of living crisis, and people just don't have the money to go see films every week. If you're taking a whole family out, it can rack up a lot, and if it's that or just waiting 3 weeks, most will choose the latter. Now on top of this, all the studios have a backlog of films where they've not been able to push things out to audience capacity. Because of this, they're releasing everything now whilst they can, and it seems like we've got a big film almost every week. It's very oversaturated and difficult for a movie to stand out, and when you've got a sequel to an old franchise, it's difficult to feel new and fresh. So it kind of gets lost amongst things like Across the Spider-Verse, which even 5 weeks in is still doing really well. I think in the end though, these guys just spent way too much, and this is something that was seen in The Flash too. $300 million is difficult to justify, and a film like this was always going to be impossible to profit from. If you overspend and underdeliver, then you're going to be left at a loss, and it's something that Disney don't seem to want to learn from. I do think that this is a film that will change the industry though, and that will probably get more conservative amounts when they're greenlighting their pictures. What it really comes down to though is making good business decisions, and a movie like this was always going to struggle. Whether it was the state of the industry with their straight to streaming methods, or the fact that audiences have been let down so much in the past. The switch away from physical media is us just moving with the times, but it also hurts the back end profits that these films make. The poor leadership and depressing nature to the movie was hampered by mixed reviews that didn't capture young audiences' interest and therefore didn't capture money. In the end, there was just so much riding against it, and given all these reasons, this is why this movie failed. Obviously, there's a lot we've gone over here, and if you agree or not, then let me know below. I think stuff like this can be a big learning curve, and I'm sure there's lots I can learn from you guys as well, so make sure you leave a comment. Now, if you want to support the channel for as little as 99 cents a month, then please click the join button below, and as a thank you, you'll get early access to videos every week. We also have our merch store over at shopzeroedition.com, which sells lots of nerdy inspired t-shirts, hats and more. We've just launched a Secret Invasion / Pulp Fiction inspired t-shirt, so if you want to head over there and help us out, then the link's in the description. Now if you want something else to watch, we've got a full breakdown of the movie's ending and giving our general thoughts on how we felt about it. There's lots of things to talk about, I know people are going to have a lot to say, so yeah, definitely head over there right after this. Out of the way, huge thank you for sticking through the video. I've been Paul, and I'll see you next time. You take care. Peace.